everybody. Welcome to another episode of Dayton Drama Queens. Same question as last time. Why is there only one queen on the stage today? Well, you'll meet another one in a minute. But the reason there's only one of us here is, again, Philip's show is on a roll. The Big Gay Jamboree, doing a great job at the Orpheum Theater, the Lower East End of New York City. Make sure you check it out. It's been getting great reviews. They've been sold out every night. So we're very proud of the other Dayton Drama Queen, Philip Drennen. Miss you, buddy. But we're holding the fort together here as he's gone. Our question of the week this week, we got a question about how do you get kids involved in Dayton theater? I will tell you, look into your local schools. Muse Machine is a huge part of what goes on with Theater for Kids here, as well as the Yellow Brick Theater Company. So all of those are good recommendations. Check it out, though. Great thing to get involved with. There's a lot of live theater for kids here in Dayton. Speaking of theater, we got a different kind of theater, that being the movie type. And I know so many of you are near and dear to the Neon Movies. And the person who takes care of that Neon Movies is here, John McNeal. Johnathan, welcome to our lovely little DDQ podcast.
Thank you.
We're excited to have you. Yes, of course. And one thing we want to know about, because I know you're fresh off the airplane, tell us a little bit about Toronto this year.
So this was my second time back since COVID. And this was the first time, though, last year was the strikes. So this year was
that's right.
The reemergence of star power at the festival, which was a lot of fun.
Who did you get to see?
I was at a party with Amy Adams.
Oh my gosh, how fun.
That was fun. And, just so many great people just kind of showed up and weren't necessarily anticipated. So I went to a screening of Piece by Piece about Pharrell. It's a Lego telling of his story, interestingly. And it was like the third screening, so they didn't anticipate that the director, who did movies like Won't You Be My Neighbor and other documentaries that I really believed in, so I went to see that because of it. He showed up and Pharrell was there and just did a really incredible talk. And the theater was filled with kids who were at risk or part of music groups or whatever to be inspired.
Amazing.
So
I just got goosebumps all over my. That is amazing. So did you have a particular film that you loved this time?
Interestingly, last day there were a few films all in one block that I had to kind of pick one from, and I decided to go with a movie called The Life of Chuck, which, as far as I know, has not yet been picked up for distribution. It's with Tom Hiddleston. It is based on a Stephen King novella, not a horror film, though.
Oh, okay.
And I came out with tears in my eyes. My boyfriend was there, and I said, this could win the audience award. It's really spectacular. Yeah. Later that night, read an article from Variety that had their top 10 picks as to what could possibly win. It was not on that list, so I was a little bummed out about it. And the next day it won the audience award.
Gosh.
So sign me up, Variety.
They need your help desperately. So let's talk a little bit about the Neon Movies. You got so many things going on down there right now. Festivals, changing what's going outside. I mean, physically with the place. Let's start there. What are some things that are going on with the actual physical plant?
Physical space. So we are waiting on some permits from the city to continue our expansion of our outdoor space.
Which is amazing, by the way.
We've already created a terrace up on the kind of grassy knoll area.
Yes.
And we will expand the footprint of the lower level patio, put a new fence around that space, and cover it with a whimsical awning is how we're describing it.
Cute,
so,
cute.
Yeah.
Like
so the space has just been painted. We've got an incredible mural.
Amazing.
That I'm very pleased about, that honors our old friend, Julia Reichert.
Yes.
And, just really delighted with how things are progressing there.
That's great. And so, because of that patio, I know you have these parties, and those only take place up until...
So we're done with them for this season, but that doesn't mean that the patio can't be used anymore. So we had 8 weeks of guest hosts on Friday evenings. So whether it was the RubiGirls or whether it was Ryan McClin, we had different personalities from the community come and be guest hosts so that they could bring their followers and kind of create some synergy around what we offer at the theater.
And those have been really successful.
They've been great.
It's a great idea.
So many folks coming to the patio and the Neon for the first time.
Yeah. And so once we get inside the theater, you guys are doing a lot more special events and like festival type stuff at the Neon. Tell us a little bit about where that's coming from.
So, we really found that the events were what were driving our business, especially since COVID. The one night only screenings of documentaries about famous musicians, whether it's a Stevie Nicks doc or whether it's a documentary of old footage of Paul McCartney coming down the road for us. Those were really filling the house. We didn't think that they would merit a 7-day, 3 times a day screening, but doing it one night only was really creating some fun energy. And
they sell out, right?
And that's what we've been doing. Yep. So even documentaries about certain artists that we're partnering with the Dayton Art Institute called Exhibition on Screen, where we'll look at an entire collection that might be at the National Gallery in London that's of Matisse, or whether it's whomever, or Cezanne, and then somebody from DAI comes and talks about what they have in their collection that reflects that artist, and those sell out, and we have to do encore screenings. And that's really been great just to partner with them too. We offer a free popcorn to members of DAI, so it intrigues their guest list. And that's really been beneficial for us.
And I will tell you, I've been to a couple of those. I will tell you what I love about those is it's almost as if you're there. The way they're visually presented is just incredible.
It's really up close. And in fact, Dr. Jerry Smith from DAI talked about how a couple times he's been really emotional and brought goosebumps because to be able to see those works with such high definition cameras and projectors, and to be able to really see that paint on the canvas in a way that you might not even be able to get that close at the museum. So
it's incredible. I know also that one of the things that you guys are known for, it's not your typical movies. And so people are always like, oh, I don't know that much about the Neon's movies. And then people get there and they're like, oh my God, that was incredible. So how do you go about putting together these, showings of films?
So our traditional day-to-day engagements are things that, for the most part, I have a buyer out of Oakland, and between the two of us, she sees a lot of what happens at Sundance. I go to TIFF, so kind of bookends the calendar year, and we see a lot of what's on the horizon. So between that and trade screenings that I go to Cincinnati and see movies that are coming down the pike for us as well, there's an old law on the books that says that distributors have to offer us an opportunity to see movies before they get released.
That's cool.
Who knew? Yeah, it's an old law because back in the day, in the 30s, they would say you can play Gone with the Wind, but you have to play these 3 stinkers that you've never heard of before. And they decided that there had to be an opportunity for projectionists, for exhibitors to be able to see the material before it came out.
Interesting.
So that law is still on the books, and that allows me then to see movies and make informed decisions and determine how to market them.
What throughout your year, what festivals are highlighted? I know you have the LGBTQ, which has been very, very successful.
Right.
What other festivals do you have?
The only other real festival that's happening still is the Dayton Jewish Film Festival.
Okay.
The Dayton Independent Film Festival, which was a collection of shorts mostly put together by UD, is moving this year to the Roger Glass Center because they've
that's right.
invested a lot of money into a space on campus for that. So they want to come back to the Neon, but they're still figuring that out.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And so the LGBTQ Film Festival, that was one that, didn't you kind of spearhead that?
I started it, with the 3 years on the road with the RubiGirls documentary.
Yes.
I came back and was approached by the Downtown Priority Board asking to put together something that they had a little bit of funding, and what could they do to create something around film. And they wanted to do maybe like a cult series, like a John Waters fest or, something like
John
that.
Waters, yes.
But we decided that I would go after, I said, if you're willing to put your name on this, I'll go after the additional funding and make a series of films of all new material, but all queer material. Yeah. And they were willing to get behind it. So this is year 19 for that festival now.
That's unbelievable.
And and it's grown, and it's now changed its name. Last year we did a rebranding.
Oh,
It's
that's
called
right.
Out Here Dayton now. We decided that the moniker of the LGBT community has continued to evolve, LGBTQ, IA, plus, etc. And we decided that instead of trying to keep up with that evolution, to just cast a net that's wide and embracing.
Yeah. And you, I know, and knowing you as a personal friend, I know that you have really like heralded your board and what they've been able to do. How does that work for you with the board? Are you more of an executive director, or do you all come to consensus? What goes on there?
There is talk of changing my title to something else other than manager, because I do a lot more than
I know you do. Yes.
than just manage the operations.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of on every committee almost.
Okay.
So I am, looking at fundraising, am looking at marketing, all that. But there are certainly a couple really proactive board members who have taken the reins on a couple of special events that have been really beneficial to us.
And actually, you haven't been a nonprofit that long, isn't that right?
2019 is when we became a nonprofit.
Okay.
Citywide used to own the operation company, and when that changed leadership, they decided that they wanted to kind of cut ties to the couple organizations that they oversaw, and we decided that was an opportune moment to make that change.
Yeah.
And it was exactly at the right time, because when COVID happened, that allowed us, being a nonprofit allowed us to apply for shuttered venue grants and all the kinds of things that really helped keep us alive.
Keep the doors open, for sure. So one of the things I know people talk about is your concessions. Let's just be real. There are people talk about the pricing on them, and people talk about what you offer now. Tell us a little bit about that, because I think people would love to hear that.
A lot of people say we have the best popcorn in town.
There's no doubt the best popcorn. Yes.
We spend a little more on it, but we also don't charge it as much as the multiplexes. Our prices are the best in town as well. From our beer and wine prices to the popcorn and candy prices. People are flummoxed sometimes when they're told that it's $10 for all that they just got, which would have been maybe 18 to 20 at a multiplex.
Yeah.
But part of that rationale is that we know that there's still a profit margin there, and we want the theater to be open and inviting, and not a hurdle for people to get there. That's why we have a bargain day. That's why we offer some events for free.
Yes.
The Out Here Dayton Film Festival has a portal for scholarships. Anybody who wants a free ticket to that festival just goes online and says, this is why I want a free ticket, and we give it to them.
That's
so
amazing.
We try to do free events with regularity, and it's because we want this to be a community space.
And tell us a little bit about, there is a discount day. Tell us a little bit about that, because I know that we take advantage of that. And while you're speaking of that, talk a little bit too about how you can become a member of the Neon.
Sure. So bargain day is Tuesdays. It's $6.50 for our traditional engagements on Tuesdays.
Yep.
And membership is $60 a year, and that gets you $2 off your traditional engagements all the time. So our traditional prices are $10.50 and $8.50, whether you're a senior or general admission in the evening. So those tickets would be $6.50 or $8.50 based on that membership. It also gets you 10% off at the concession stand. I'll be starting a membership quarterly newsletter that kind of gives you a little bit behind the scenes stuff later this year. So some perks in there as well.
And you already have a newsletter.
That's right.
And how would you go about getting that if you want?
neonmovies.com. There's a little link right at the bottom to sign up for that on a weekly basis. It tells you what's coming, what's happening, one night only screenings, visiting filmmakers, film festivals, all that sort of thing. Really keeps you in
One thing I love about too is some of the reviews that go on that. So you get to know a little bit more about the movie before you set foot there. Because sometimes by the names, you're like, what is this even about, or what?
Sure.
And there's not as much information always for more of the repertory kind of theater stuff.
Right.
I think that newsletter is very helpful.
Thank you.
I really do.
Yeah.
So
I have some readers who are very invested.
Yeah.
And, I tell my staff, you need to read this newsletter every week, because you need to be as as informed as our best customers. And we have those customers who walk in the door who knows what's happening 2 months from now.
Absolutely. So one of the questions, owning Square One downtown, one of the questions we get is the whole parking issue. Tell us a little bit about, if I'm a big neon person, what do you recommend when we come downtown?
So right across the street from our front door, we just invested over $30,000 into repaving our parking lot, making sure that it is safe and accessible for our customers 365 days a year.
Okay.
So we tend to it with snow. We pick up trash every day. We really feel like that's the beginning of your customer experience, is parking in that lot and walking across the street. So that lot right on the corner of 5th and Patterson is our dedicated lot. It's very well marked now. You can't miss it.
Yeah. I know one of the things, those of you that don't know Johnathan well, one of the things he does is he goes to Rotary, I think, every year to talk about the Oscars.
That's right.
And they love that. Tell us a little bit about your, how did this whole thing start with you becoming such a movie aficionado?
Well, movie stuff. I mean, I certainly grew up loving film. My mother thought that, I was spending too much time in front of the TV.
He's got a wonderful mother.
But so I loved film. I did the research when I was in junior high as to find out where you could study film. I knew by 8th grade that I was going to go to Wright State. I knew I had to go somewhere in state. I knew we couldn't afford out of state tuition anywhere. So I went to Wright State and was a student under incredible people like Chuck Derry and Julia Reichert and Jim Klein.
Yes.
And
many of them Oscar winners, correct?
Jim Klein nominated several times. Julia and Steve Bognar winners, of course, Emmy winners as well. And so I had a great education in that regard, and then have been asked to teach as well. So I taught at Stivers for 5-6 years. I filled in for Julia while she was on sabbatical a couple times.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
That's so cool. And so, like, if you were to look at, how you ended up in Dayton, obviously is through Wright State. But when you're to look at running this kind of a movie cinema house, whatever you want to call it, when you look at that now, are you like, this is where I want to be? Is there more to it? Do you want to get outside of Dayton? Are you loving it?
Oh, there's still times where I go to somewhere like Toronto and I'm like, I could plant myself here.
Yeah.
But I also go at a time when it's festival season and the energy is so film focused that it's like, if I could live and breathe this all the time,
and
I would love it.
It's not the reality.
That's not the reality.
For sure.
Right.
Your theme, I see you wearing on your shirt, cinema, culture, community.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about how that came to be.
We needed a little motto a couple years ago, and this is one that Megan Smith, one of our board members, came up with. And we love the alliteration. We love that it really focuses on exactly what we're about. First and foremost, cinema, the culture that cinema creates and exposes us to, and then the community building that cinema can do. Yeah. So it's all right there.
People can use the theaters for their own building of community.
That's right.
Tell them about that.
And so we rent our space at a very reasonable rate. We just had an organization come in and screen the redlining documentary.
Amazing,
and it was a group of realtors that wanted to expose the community to more information about redlining. I, of course, knew the filmmakers associated with that film, reached out to them. They were eager for real estate people to be a part of that. So last night, there were tables throughout the lobby with different resources for people and to meet different people from whether it's Habitat for Humanity or, various groups in town that could speak to the redlining kind of mission, and then see a documentary and then have about a 45-minute discussion afterward with a panel of experts. So and that space, that's really what we're about. And that happens a lot. In the first 6 months of 2024, we had over 50 one-night only screenings. That's a lot of work.
Wow.
It's a lot of work. But whether it's a documentary called Butterfly in the Sky, which was about reading Rainbow, and then to have some literacy experts there talking about literacy rates and engaging the community on getting young people invested in reading, whether it's a documentary called Black Boys about little Black boys being left behind in the public school system the most and having educators there. I mean, that kind of engagement and whatnot is how, like Julia Reichert said, films can change the world.
And they do.
Yeah.
So, before we head out of here, I do have one question for you. What do you see as the future of theaters? I mean, I feel like they're bouncing all over the place trying to figure it out.
Right.
What do you see as the future with all of us having home theaters and things of that nature?
The streaming services certainly hurt the industry, hurt the exhibition industry. But we're just finding new ways to engage, and that's really valuable. That's why these one night only screenings and whatnot have become kind of a lifeblood for us. Occasionally we have a hit, we have a Holdovers, or we have a Poor Things, or we have something that or a Thelma, something
so much fun.
that lasts 5 or 6 weeks. But, the longest films that we've had since COVID and since the advent of all those streaming services that came out in those 2 years of COVID are 5, 6, maybe 7 weeks. Whereas we used to have movies like Slumdog Millionaire that played 13 weeks, and they'd stick around for a long time. So it's evolving. It's figuring out a new way to create synergy in the space.
Yeah.
And it's rewarding.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, seriously, you guys have faced it head on, and I think you've done an incredible job.
Thank you.
And I thank you so much for coming
Absolutely.
to be on Dayton's Drama Queens, which, as you know, we're growing and growing. Don't forget, if you want to get in touch with us, it's DaytonDramaQueens@gmail.com. So appreciate you. So appreciate Johnathan for being here. And, keep in touch with us as much as you possibly can. I will see you next time. And I'm sure there'll be a little video of Philip popping up somewhere along this episode. Thanks for being here, Dayton. And thank you for being here.
Thank you.
We'll see you next time.